Section 15. Credibility and Denominators. If our task is to determine which belief system is the most credible, how does a belief system become credible? After all, no human can personally verify anything about the afterlife, so no human has any credibility on the topic of the afterlife by default. However, there is the possibility that a human has received information from a credible source. In this case, the credible source would necessarily be some entity that actually does know something about the afterlife. A transcendent entity like a god, gods, angels, or demons are the most common conceptions of a being knowledgeable about the afterlife, and the most common understanding of how such information is transferred is via divine inspiration. Of course, there may be other entities that know something about the afterlife, just like there may be different mediums for their insight to be transmitted other than divine inspiration. Even so, for intuitive clarity, I will use the terms transcendent entity and divine inspiration going forward. This is the first denominator of credibility for the afterlife. The information must originally come from a non-human credible source, like a transcendent entity. The problem is that anyone can claim to have received divine inspiration, whether they've actually been divinely inspired or not. Since the truth cannot contradict itself, we must come to the conclusion that many people have falsely or mistakenly claimed to have been divinely inspired because few of the many divinely inspired belief systems agree. To handle this, we need some method to further differentiate people who claim to have received divine inspiration. So what makes divine inspiration credible? Miracles typically serve this purpose. To reiterate, a miracle constitutes some phenomenon that goes beyond contemporary human possibility or understanding. In this context, we are interested in miracles that occur in a way that validates or invalidates a claimant of divine inspiration. An example of this would be if an ancient prophet wrote, "God has revealed to me that water is made up of 2 hydrogen atoms and 1 oxygen atom." In this scenario, this would be a fairly miraculous statement, considering atomic theory hadn't been developed yet, nor does our ancient prophet have the means to discover this for himself. Of course, if the ancient prophet had instead written, "God has revealed to me that water quenches thirst," we know our prophet would not have needed divine inspiration to come to this conclusion. More common examples of miracles involve miraculous healings of incurable diseases, initiating or ceasing natural phenomena at will, teleportation, flying, and others. This is the second denominator of credibility for claims about the afterlife. You need a miracle that acts as credentials to stand out as more credible. While anyone can claim to have done a miracle or experienced one, not everyone can produce proof a miracle occurred. Since there can be evidence behind claims of a miracle, it is at this level that real distinction between claimants becomes possible and allows us to use the optimal gambit. By examining the evidence or lack of evidence for miracles that validate or invalidate any claimant, we can determine which claimant most probably was truly divinely inspired, and then view that claimant as most likely having real truth about the afterlife. Of course, we can never have absolute proof or confidence that a miracle has occurred, especially if it was in the past. However, we can compare our mental approximation of the likelihood a validating miracle has occurred against the likelihood other validating miracles occurred. Even if one thinks the possibility any miracle has ever occurred is astronomically improbable. With these denominators of credibility established, divine inspiration and validating miracles, we can begin to evaluate different belief systems. However, the sheer number of claimed miracles across various traditions presents a challenge. To address this, we must focus our attention on what can be called cornerstone miracles, those foundational events that serve as the bedrock for entire belief systems.